Good morning and welcome to Talent Connect. My name is Carly Erickson and I work in Talent Solutions for LinkedIn. And it's my great pleasure today to introduce Claire McIntyre from Diageo, who's going to share how she's driven change and adoption at C-level.
Hi. So I can't see anyone, which I think is a good thing, because they just told me I was in this room when I arrived today, and I have to follow L'Oreal, right? So bear with. Okay. So my name is Claire McIntyre. I am the VP of Global Talent Engagement for Diageo. That is our talent acquisition function, and I still have global resourcing on this because I haven't got around to changing my LinkedIn profile as we're right in the middle of a transition. So before I start, I just wanted to check, well, let me give you a bit of context what we're going to do today. That'd be helpful, right? We've been on a journey within Diageo for the last 12 months. I came back from Talent Connect in Las Vegas last year, very dissatisfied with kind of how we were approaching talent acquisition and some of the things that we were doing. I had been newly promoted into a role as, I was VP of resourcing, and my role at that point was to create a strategy that would work for Diageo and really future-proof it. So what I wanted to do was really make sure that I was really understanding what was happening in the market, and that we started to have a talent acquisition function that was actually best in class, and we were going to be moving towards that way. Talent Connect last year. Sorry, I've taken a complete blank. Can I just start again? Is that okay? Okay, let's go back. Hi. Okay, so what we want to share with you actually is a journey that we've been on. As I said, I started my role really creating the strategy for Diageo, and then we've moved into, in the last kind of 4 months, we've actually implemented a new model. So this is very much a story about our journey we've been on. I don't have all the answers, I don't have the silver bullet, so you still have time if you want to go to any of the other rooms. I'll totally understand, okay? So, before I start and kind of kick into it, how many of you know who Diageo is? Yep. Okay, and half of you work for me, so some of you might know our brands, so Johnnie Walker, Smirnoff, Guinness, yeah? Get more recognition? Okay. What I want to do is share with you a little 5-minute video that we have recently developed. It's not actually being shared more broadly within the organization, but it is who Diageo is from the perspective of our employees and what's important to them. So can we roll the video, please?
Cardew has a long history dating back to 1811. Cardew was the first distillery that Johnnie Walker bought in 1893. I think it's fantastic how the Johnnie Walker brand has grown. We're very fortunate here because we bring people from all the markets in the world. They come to Cardew to get immersed in the history and the heritage of Johnnie Walker and the making of malt whisky itself.
We're really fortunate to have some great colourful characters in the history of our brands. I guess what we're doing at the archive is uncovering hidden gems and unlocking brand stories and just little nuggets of information which might lead to a new product or a new marketing campaign.
It's important to pay homage to the past, especially with Tanqueray. Charles Tanqueray was a pioneer in 1830. Me as a brand ambassador, I feel so passionate about all the work Charles Tanqueray has done, and I want to make sure that I do that justice.
It's so important that we see ourselves as custodians of those brands, the quality, the nature of the liquid, the perception of those brands within our consumers' minds.
I feel a tremendous sense of pride that I get to say I work for Diageo, not only because of the brands that we represent, but more importantly, our relationship and our reputation in the market.
Working for marketing is like the dream job because I knew about the brands. This is what you want to do in your life, manage these great stories from great people that created all these brands. So yeah, this is my dream job.
It feels super exciting to be in a position where you're being asked to develop the future in drinks and in the experiences that our consumers are going to enjoy in years to come. 50% of our growth has been delivered by innovation in the last 5 years. I am so excited by the prospects of us really pioneering in our industry.
We're constantly looking for what's going to set us apart in the future. We're trying to establish these really deep, strong relationships with our customers and internally with our teams.
When I see our brands on shelves, I get so excited. I'm really like a kid in a sweet shop. I love seeing a product, especially one that I've worked on. I love saying I did that, and seeing it on the shelf for the first time is really, really rewarding, and it's really nice to see that people are getting to enjoy our drinks and they can enjoy all of our hard work.
You put passion in because you're proud of what you're doing, and you want other people to kind of recognise the amount of effort that you put in. You know, that's for me why I come to work. I want to be proud of what I do, both in the brands we sell, but in how they represent themselves in the community as well.
Working for a company that goes beyond what is expected is really important to me. Learning for Life is a program designed to transform and inspire the life of young people through education. I'm lucky to have been involved with Learning for Life since the very beginning. And now I feel very proud to see that the more we grow as a company, the more determined we are to invest in our communities and to do it in a very meaningful way.
Water is one of the challenges we have in Nigeria. So what better way to contribute to the community by providing safe, potable drinking water?
India is an emerging market. The potential is unlimited. And USL being the market leader, Diageo saw that as a tremendous opportunity to create its footprint globally.
Diageo has such iconic brands which have reached the status that they are at today by placing a fundamental human truth at the heart of their brand strategy. And I think it's tremendous that we get the opportunity to work with such brands.
It's one thing that I would say everyone's driven to push this company forward and do it in the right way. I think the Diageo values of be the best and be proud of what we do really sort of rings true with everyone.
I think it's only natural for me to work for a company like this. Values and ethics and standards have always been what have guided my life. If you go around, you ask people in the company, most people will tell you, you are an owner. You are not just an employee. What you are doing is part of your DNA. So once a Guinness employee, once a Diageo employee, always a Diageo employee.
It's that constant delivery of being good all the time that gives you that real sense of continuous fulfillment. You're part of history and you're adding something, and you're adding your personal spin on something that's been around hundreds of years.
There's lots of amazing stories in the archive. Many of them have been told, but there are lots of there still hiding away. And I'm sure our favourite story will be the one that we uncover tomorrow.
It's pretty fantastic, huh? If I do say so ourselves. I mean, the first time I saw that, I had a really emotional reaction to it. And what I love about it is it's our people's articulation of what they're very proud of in our culture and our organisation. As I say, this is a sneak peek. It's not even launched internally, but I just really wanted to show it to you today, just to kind of set the backdrop of who we are. We are the custodians of some of the world's most iconic brands, and that's an honour and a privilege. And I wanted to use one today to really kind of talk you through our approach on talent and also the journey that we've been on. So I selected Johnnie Walker. Johnnie Walker is one of our most important brands. But what I loved about it for the story we're going to walk through with you is Johnnie Walker has at its purpose, at its brand core, about personal progress, an inspirational progress and journey. And I really thought it was apt when I think about how we look at talent and grow in developing talent, but actually for the personal journey I've been on, because it has felt like a very long walk and continues to be. So in terms of what really embarked us on this change in this journey, we had a new CEO about 18 months ago, and he set a performance ambition for our organisation. He actually demanded of us that we become one of the most trusted, best performing CPG companies in the world. So that was new space, yeah? That was something that actually was going to require us to perform, behave, organise ourselves very, very differently. And as an HR function, we knew that that wasn't something we could bear on our own, that we actually had to engage it organisationally. So we actually took the task and the challenge and the performance ambition back to the C-suite, and we talked to them about what that would really mean and how talent would be a key enabler for that. And actually, it wasn't our journey to take them on, it was our journey to go on together. So what I've pulled out, this is another kind of 3-minute video. This is some of the comments and the thoughts of our senior executives talking about why the talent agenda is so important to them. Okay?
People need to know that they have a future. People need to know what that future looks like.
In the same way that we invest in IT or brewing capacity, we've got to invest in people.
Whilst we spent hours and hours and weeks on developing our strategy, for me, the recognition that actually, if we haven't got a talent strategy that sits over that and recruits into our business the right people, all of that work will have been for nothing.
This is really about a skillful blend of both finding the right talent as well as growing it internally. This is something which has to be collectively owned by not just the HR team, but by everybody in the organization.
This is the must-do that really will deliver the F17 strategy. And I believe that without it, and we've seen it in the past, that when we don't have a really solid talent and organizational plan, we don't deliver our strategies.
People will deliver our ambition, and we need to ensure that every one of us is at our best.
Diversity plays a role in the talent must-do. From the perspective of the way people think, we need people to think differently, and I think that's going to help us bring along the talent must-do.
In emerging markets particularly, the talent agenda, the fight for talent is enormous.
There's lots of companies all competing for the best people. I think our reputation is going to be critical. We've got people coming out of universities with high expectations. They will not work for companies that don't have the right values, the right ethics, the right opportunities for them to grow.
This is something that we work on every single day. Hiring, growing talent, and our engagement agendas are something that I do every day as a leader.
When we make decisions to cut or defer talent development programs in order to manage overall performance, we are jeopardizing our progress.
We can't be constrained by what we think we can afford. Our constraint has to be what is possible out there, if there's any constraint at all.
Know me, grow me, value me is so true. And if we do that with the capability of our folk and the scale of our business, there are no barriers. It's simply down to the will to make it happen.
So some really nice words there from the senior exec. But that's actually a big responsibility for us as a HR function, and specifically talent acquisition to really, live up to. And it actually meant that we were going to have to go into some uncharted territories for us as a function, and really the spotlight was going to be on how we manage talent. And while that's deeply exciting as an HR professional, as someone who was trying to create the strategy and lead the function, it's a huge responsibility, right? So let me talk to you a little bit about where we were at the start of this journey. So we had a mixed model globally. And what I mean by that is we had shared services in some markets, and there was different stage of development there. Some were brand new into, others had been more mature. We had a real mixture of direct source and agency reliance, and in fact, direct sourcing had not been rolled out as a core strategy for all markets. We had very inconsistent ways of working. So when I looked across the globe, and I think about having that mixed model, we had some half heads, so somebody was half reward, half talent acquisition. We had full cycle resort. So it was very, very mixed. And that drove very, very different ways of working. And that it just prevented us from getting scale and efficiency. Employer brand, we had an employer brand of sorts. We hadn't really paid any attention to it. So, a few people knew who we were as Diageo in the room earlier. A few more knew the brands. But when you transfer that into the emerging markets, that becomes even more critical. And when your talent acquisition team are having to introduce themselves as Diageo, right? That's not very powerful for us. And the talent landscape has changed significantly, and you guys all know and see and feel this. What people are looking for is no longer a job for life. They're not looking for one company to be everything. They're not looking to leave their personality at home and come into the workplace. People are seeking something different. And in my opinion, talent is now seeking meaning and purpose. And from an organization, but also for the organization to enable them to fulfill that. And we had a really mixed perception of resourcing internally, a lot of files and drift. So a lot of things, people would say things like, why does it take us 6 months to hire a blah, blah, blah? And actually, we didn't have a narrative to counter that, so we didn't know. And when people stand up and say that, it becomes the facts, right? So we didn't have the data, we didn't have the narrative to counter it. So we were seen as, at best, an average performing engine that was clunky, and our teams worked really, really hard. And we're hearing that they were average performing and clunky, and that didn't feel great for them. So very kind of mixed. Different stages of development, different demands in different markets. So if I look at the demand in Asia versus the demand in Latin America, it was kind of very, very different market demands, internal demands. And the heat of the market, which is what my Latin team always say to me, they'll say, Claire, this is a very hot market, you don't understand. And that's just really kind of what the competitive landscape's like as well. So that was kind of the backdrop of what I came into when I came into role. So, as someone coming in and having heard the performance ambition, where our CEO wanted to take us, the C-suite demands, we actually had talent at the heart of the commercial agenda, right in the heart. We had people being as committed to their talent plans and agendas as they were to their market plans. So that was a lot for us to live up to. And we had to be worthy of it, right? Because we couldn't let it down. Talent, as you've heard so much this morning already, is the most critical thing that we bring into our organization. And actually what we do is talent acquisition. We are the gatekeepers of that. And we enable the decision making of whether someone's going to be a great performer and perform quickly, or if they're not, if the fit's not there. So that's a big responsibility. So I had to really find a way through to measure up to that. So what did I do? After I panicked, did a lot of external benchmarking. I love talking to people in our industry. I find some of the most generous people, very generous with their time. People were very willing to kind of problem solve with you and share with you the journey they've been on and some of the things that worked and didn't work. I had some really robust conversations with people because it's interesting. When you come from one organization, you kind of believe that your way of doing things is right? Because it's like, well, it's what you know. So to into a conversation with someone in another organization who's very committed to their model and way of working, you have some fascinating insights you drive out of that. So I really enjoyed that. I actually started to do a lot of data analytics, and I've become a bit of a data nerd. I love it. And I think the more that we can be skilled in that as talent acquisition, the better for us, because we need to be able to tell a story. We need to be able to understand the shape of our organization, and I don't mean which markets you're in, I mean the shape. So what's your ebbs and flows? Is it all exec recruitment? Is it entry level? Where does entry level come? So to really understand the shape, and then to understand the metrics that underpin. Is it really 6 months to hire a? And that can be quite painful, right, to spend the time getting into the numbers, but it's hugely important. I also spent some time really making sure I understood what the stakeholders needed, not what they wanted. And I tried to sit in the space with them and not defending against what they had had. Does that make sense? So it's a bit about, for me, getting into the conversation to understand where's the frustration coming from, and then helping to really think through, if we want to deliver this performance ambition, and if we want to be one of the most trusted, best performing CPG companies in the world, what does that actually look like and what do we need to do? And I always wanted to make sure that what we did was really worthy of the brand Diageo and the brands that we're custodians of. So that was really about kind of taking all of these component parts, but then overlaying onto that to say, actually, if we dared to dream, like forget how hard it would be to get there. If we dared to dream big, what are the possibilities for us? And how can we bring to life what makes Diageo really special, really unique? So that was kind of the overlay when I started to synthesize all this stuff. This took 9 months, and I've said it in 9 minutes, I think. And I could talk for lots longer, but I just want to kind of keep it to the highlights. So some of the thinking and some of the movement that I started to make was moving from a very disparate model focused on recruitment. So we had a resourcing function. We moved to one global model and ways of working, and we called it the talent engagement function. That's not a fancy rebrand, that's a declared intent. It signifies a difference in how we're going to think, act, behave, and how we're going to interact with the business. That's quite a significant change. We had internal resourcing managed by the HR business partners, and it felt like it was one side of a wall. And then we had resourcing managing external, and there was no interaction there, right? And the more I thought about it, it was kind of like trying to do a jigsaw puzzle without the picture, actually. Because if you shift your thinking to filling talent gaps versus filling roles, you need to understand the whole talent landscape. And that was a big shift we made. We pulled all that together, internal and external, managed by one team. And my team is focused on strengthening succession through movement and acquisition. That's kind of what we're here to do, right? We divided roles and responsibilities, or we had divided roles and responsibilities across the end-to-end process. It was clunky. So we had the BP involved, the recruiter involved, just different bits and pieces, and who set the sourcing strategy and who was accountable. It just felt it just wasn't driving the right outcome. So what I did was, by bringing it all into the one team, we then started to look at having 2 roles within our team. That's what the data told me. The data told me that we actually had the need for a role focused on roles we hire all the time. And how do we get brilliant at creating brilliant pipelines and having a brilliant assessment ahead of the need? Because we know we're always going to be hiring sales entry level, always. We're always going to be hiring finance entry level, always. Why do we act surprised when we get a rec? So very much moving out into that way. And then the second role is much more looking at, I guess I would call them the more senior or unique roles, really understanding how that fits with the talent plans and what's driving that from a capability requirement. And actually, what's the fit for the talent gap, but also for the team? And actually, should we be starting to change the capabilities we're hiring at this point? So it's much more focused on a strategic conversation at that point. I moved from buying stuff, yes, that's a technical term, stuff, that was as technical as I was at that point, from LinkedIn. I don't even know what stuff we had. I met Lou Turner, he's my account manager, I think the first day in my new role. And then I was introduced to Carly, and I then adopted Carly. Carly, I believe in my head she works for me. And actually, by creating a strategic partnership and bringing them into the team, we started to get very different results, very, very different results. And we're going to talk into that in a bit more. By moving away from stuff, we created an ecosystem. And that's a very carefully selected word, and it was interesting to hear L'Oreal use it today. I had it on my slides before they said it, okay? Just so you know. But it is an ecosystem. You can't have one component and hope that it's going to drive the right outcomes. This is a sophisticated talent pool now. We all know we want passives, right? We're kind of interested in the pactives, passively active. They're flirting a little bit. And then we want to make sure we're still capturing the active. How do we create an ecosystem that's going to drive that and actually enable the team, my team, to be focused on the right thing, which is assessing talent, not hunting every single day of the week. And a big change was moving from one size fits all to actually having a very differentiated approach to role grades and functions. And I touched on that a little bit with the 2 roles, but also I really want to win in marketing and sales, more than anything. That's where I want to win, and I want to win in early career. I'm not saying I want to ignore the other stuff. I want to be great at the other stuff and really, really, really deliver. I want to be brilliant in this space. Okay. So when I got all that framed in my mind, we started to build what we actually did call the optimal solution. I think that was Lou's expression. And this was a fascinating journey for me, because I approached Lou and Carly and I said, this is not working. This is not going to get me where I need to be. And I don't want to talk about what I have. I don't want to even talk about the contract. I don't care. I want you to treat me like you've never met me before, and this is a brand new piece of business. Go design for me what I need to deliver this model. I'm going to ask Carly to share that with you. Yeah.
If you think about an ecosystem, everything in the system depends on something else to survive. And LinkedIn Talent Solutions is a lot like that. Claire's already mentioned it. And your employees form a very large part of that ecosystem and act as ambassadors on LinkedIn. They can carry corporate messages, share experiences, and support the company values. So when I talk to my customers, like Diageo, about LinkedIn Talent Solutions, I often refer to it as an ecosystem, and the career page as the car, and the other products as the fuel that drives the car. So when you're thinking about that, you would want to know that there's enough fuel in the engine to actually drive the car. So when we looked at Diageo and the situation we had to design a new solution, we really wanted to take the time to think about what that entire solution would look like. And we determined that we needed an automated, always-on solution, which would drive talent to the career page to fill the volume roles, and additional tools that we would use to source and search for more experienced and specialist roles, and also to build on the brand and build pipelines for the future. So Claire and I spent probably the most amount of time on this idea of what were the right elements of each of these parts of the ecosystem that would build the best solution for Diageo. And the first thing we did was we looked at the new resourcing function, and we broke that down into 3 streams. Volume roles would be filled by the always-on automated solution, driving talent through the career page, employment brand, media on LinkedIn, to the jobs that would always be advertised. All the jobs, every job that Diageo had, would be advertised there on the career page. For the more specialist roles, the recruiters and sources were given recruiter licenses and talent pipeline licenses to be able to search and engage with the talent that they needed and build pipelines for the future. The graduate and experience level hiring were also given recruiter licenses, but they had an additional tool, which we call Check-in, which was to manage all of their events. Then we looked at the team and the roles and responsibilities of the recruitment function to set some clear goals and targets that they would be working to. This was a long-term sourcing strategy, so it needed everyone on board to really build capability for the future.
Is this on? Yeah, okay then. What I would say about Carly was, I had to bring her inside my mind and share with her a lot of things that I hadn't been sharing more broadly. So that was really kind of, there is and continues to be a lot of trust in our relationship, but it was vital that I could share with her where we were going to actually give her what she needed to be really good at her job. The only thing I'll say about Carly is, and just in full disclosure, she doesn't know how much anything costs. So, at one point I was having, and I used to call her every day and say, tell me again, how does this work, and what about that? And I said to her, I don't understand. What's the price difference between a pipeline chair and a recruiter? And she said, I don't know. And I thought she was being kind of coy, and I'm like, oh, come on, you do know. She said, no, I don't. She doesn't know the price of anything, which is hugely liberating, actually, because it meant when we were designing something that was right, rather than something that was cheap or we thought we could afford, right? So I just wanted to share that. Okay, so done all the thinking, done the design. Now we had to sell the change. And when I say we, I mean I had to sell the change into Diageo. Everyone has a point of view on recruitment, always, 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 right? Everyone thinks they know how to do it better than anyone else. So it's a topic that everyone wants to express, be involved in and put their fingerprints on. So we have 21 markets with 21 HRDs, plus an international supply centre, plus an end-to-end function we call GDBS. Plus we have the global HR leads. Therefore, I had to sell this change into all these people and get them aligned, and something that was actually pretty big. Because what I didn't really call out earlier was by moving the internal into the resourcing group, we actually took that away from the business partners. So in effect, we changed their function. We changed what we were asking them to do, and we're actually asking them to let go of things they really enjoyed. So that was quite a big change on their world as well. So I had to sell in a new resourcing model plus the changes to their team. So it was tough. We took it to a 2-day workshop in London. We brought in all of these kind of HRDs from across the region. We didn't have all 24 or however many we have. We had a cross-section representing. And it was painful, and it was long, and it was more nerve-wracking than actually the first 1 minute of this presentation when I forgot what I was going to say. It was a really, it was because you're in there, you've authored something, you believe in it, and you kind of start to hear challenges, even when it's contribution, right? So it was really interesting to kind of be in that process and environment. I learned that when you defend something you've created, people want to push back and tell you why it won't work. When you sit in the space of listening to their concerns and working through it with them, they actually start to advocate quite quickly. And that was a big learning for me, was get advocacy early on. So I made sure I had a couple of key influencers in the room who had taken this through earlier. Got them through, helped them understand. And that really helped navigate some of the conversations. And in fact, at the end of the meeting, one of the HRDs, who my team here today know very, very well, she said in her 10 years at Diageo, it was the best conversation she'd ever had about resourcing, and it was the most positive she felt. That was like a huge moment of relief for me, because then there was other people believing and buying in. And she continues to be a huge advocate today. Absolutely, someone I go to for input and advice and thoughts. So that would be like kind of my big kind of key to selling the change. I also firmly believed I could make it a cost-neutral model. Because we had so many other people in market doing bits of this, by bringing it into a global shared services kind of deal, we create efficiencies. So obviously when you declare that to your organization, it becomes a mandate, right? So that became something that we really worked to. I also really kind of learnt that my job's to paint the black and white outline and to let people colour in with me. And what I mean by that is if you don't let people build on the story and make it richer with you, then you lose out. Because what I can create on my own with the best consultants in the world is not going to be the same as when I take it into my organization and enable them to kind of color in with me to make it rich, yeah? And I learned to repeat myself over and over and over and over and not sound like I was getting tired of it. And that was something that was quite important, and it links to my kind of other big aha moment, which was about alignment. You know how you and I are having a conversation and we leave it, and we're both in one place? What I realized was when I'm the one that's leading the change, I'm the only one that's thinking about it 24/7. So when we come back, I need to spend time realigning you. And I kind of missed that for the first couple of conversations, which meant I was getting quite frustrated that we were kind of having cross I just didn't understand, well, but you agreed to this yesterday. So that was like a big learning for me, that realignment piece. Painful learning, but a real one. Okay, deep breath. We've designed, we've built, we've sold, we're about to go live. So we went live with this new model on the 1st of July. And you know, there was a lot of things happening all at the one time. And I personally started to have some doubts, as you do, right? Things do not go beautifully to plan. And, you know, there's a lot going on. A lot of people are saying, well, you created this, you said. And when it's not exactly going smoothly, and my team, present company excluded ladies, my team were putting pressure on me for what happened, you changed my this, and why is that changed, and I don't understand this. I did start to have a moment of kind of self-doubt and a little wobble, and I'm actually going to ask Carly to share with you this, because she was the person I actually turned to.
So late one night, I received this email from Claire. And we'd only really just gone live with the solution, as she was saying, but I knew she was just having a bit of a wobble. The team had only just started to search and pipeline talent for the future. So I didn't take too much from this. I just told her that we just needed to let it continue, give it a bit more time, and turns out that it wasn't a problem, and we didn't need to make any changes after all.
Yeah. And I think the thing, and this is the actual email, by the way, and I read this and I cringe. And I wasn't going to share it with you today, and then I thought, I just want to be really authentic. I asked for 11 more licenses there. I mean, come on, that is just somebody who's sitting saying, oh, okay. And what was really interesting for me was Carly was invested in the success of this model, but she wasn't in it with me, right? She wasn't there every day, so it was super helpful to have someone I could turn to and say, you know what we designed, did we really think about this and think about that? And then that was probably some of the kind of the moments. We didn't buy 11 more, by the way, we didn't need them. But it was just this whole kind of piece of, we all have doubts, especially someone who's leading this big change, and it was really helpful to be able to lean on my partner. Okay, so I just want to kind of shift into the whole kind of making the change. We're 4 months in. It's been a long 4 months. It's been a long 4 months for my team too. I feel like the 9 months prior to it was actually a boot camp to get me ready for this. So what would I say about making the change? I've learned a lot. I've learned that there's a big difference between resilience and tenacity. Tenacity is getting through and getting to the end. Resilience is actually leading through and making something bigger and better. At one point, I was personally feeling under a lot of pressure, and I was so focused on where we needed to get to that I wasn't actually enjoying it. And that was a big wake-up for me. So I kind of regrouped and rebalanced, but the big thing for me was I wasn't being the leader my teams needed me to be when I was being tenacious. They don't need tenacious Claire. They need the resilience and the leadership and the kind of keeping going back to the vision. And that's another key thing. I had to keep going back to the vision for me. You know, I had to keep going back to what excited me about this. And then I had to keep exciting other people at all levels in the organization. And even speaking to some of my colleagues and coming to events like this is great to re-energize you for what kind of your passion is. But when you're going through change and you're making change, it can be tough, right? The devil's in the details, which is really hard when you're trying to be a big visionary, to get into the level of detail people need to feel comfortable and confident. And honestly, that's not a space I excel in. I like the possibilities. I like to know, yeah, we'll go there and we'll figure it out. But people coming with you need to know how we're going to figure it out. Like, what do we need to pack? Where are we going? What's the weather going to be like? And creating that sense of surety for people is important. And, you know, finally, it's kind of making sure that, it's just making sure that we continue to be worthy of the brand. It's making sure that we continue to be, you know, making sure that everything we're delivering is going to be delivering that performance ambition. So, the numbers, dun dun dun. Carly, do you maybe want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so as Claire said, it's very early stages, but we wanted to take a look at how much change had happened already in such a small space of time. So we took 12 months ago to today, 4 months into the new solution, and we can already see a massive increase in job viewers, 465% more job viewers every month, 95% more career page viewers. The Talent Brand Index for Diageo on LinkedIn, which measures reach and engagement, has also increased by 38%. And total followers also increased, again, 63%. So a massive growth in just a 4-month period.
Yeah. And what I would say is it's early, right? We haven't cracked it by any stretch. I'm not saying that we have, and we're still on a really long journey ahead of us. We have a long way to go. But I am encouraged by the results that we're seeing. I feel positive about it. It feels like all the hard work's starting to pay off. We also have some internal examples or other examples of kind of green shoots, reasons to believe. So we ran a finance assessment centre, one in the US. And finance are a tough client group for us. They're very demanding. I don't know if that's just us. So we wanted to really get into this assessing ahead and creating real efficiencies in our system. So we ran assessment centres for our entry level, mid-level and senior manager. And we had the best conversion rates at those assessment centres we've ever had. So at the entry point, we actually converted, I think it was 75% of the assessment attendees got an offer, which is fantastic for us. At the kind of the next level, we had 60% conversion, which is fantastic. But actually at the senior manager level, we had higher conversion than we've ever had, and we actually made 50% offers from that assessment. So we felt good about that. We now just need to repeat it again and again and again. And the final kind of piece I'd like to pull in is CEB, the Corporate Executive Board. They're very interested in what we're doing, so I had a call with them where we took them through our model and what we were doing and the shifts we were making, and they feel that it's absolutely the right place for organisations to be going. And they were very complimentary of the strides we're starting to make, and they want to actually case study us because they're intrigued to see where we're going to go. But that's all kind of waiting to see the future, right? So what have I learned? I actually had to limit it to 3 things. There's so many things I've learned, personally and professionally. So know your business. Understand your resourcing demand and the numbers. I can't tell you enough how analytics is important. I actually put an analytics role in my team. I didn't want to have a team assistant. I wanted a team analyst because we need to understand our metrics. And what's the primary areas for resourcing talent? What's the kind of the shape of your demands and what drives that? Internal sponsorship, have an executive advocate or 2 or 3. You can't have too many. And really making sure that you understand in the team that this is a journey. I feel like actually, when I reflect back on the last 4 months for my teams, it's been very hard. You know, they've been delivering a lot. They've been delivering resourcing activity and transitioning and I don't think I've done a good enough job in helping them have all the context and all of the tools that they need to feel great about what we're doing, because they're performing excellent, but are they feeling great? So that's the piece that I'm now really focused on. And partnership, you know, authentic partnership with LinkedIn really helped me drive to this stage. Carly's insight and it was just phenomenal, and having someone to work through with you was great. And the fact, honestly, she didn't try and sell me anything because she didn't know the numbers, right? So I knew what I was getting was real. And actually having open and transparent communication throughout the whole way round. You need to be able to tell the narrative of your change. You need to be able to explain to people where you are on the journey, and you need to be able to be having that ongoing dialogue. We talk about our function actually being sales and marketing externally. We're actually sales and marketing internally as well. And we need to remember that, yeah? So, coming to the end, it's just the start of this journey for us. Although we've been working on this new model for over 12 months, it's only been implemented for 4. I feel really encouraged by where we are. I feel like we're on the cusp of greatness almost. We just need to get through some more stuff and embed. But we have a long way to go. So, with that said, I think I'm just going to stop here and give you guys an opportunity to ask any questions you may have. Is that okay? Any?
I can't see anybody.
Can we put the lights up for quick? Yeah,
There we go.
perfect. Does anyone have any questions? We have a couple of mics. Lou, there's a mic there.
Hi, is this on? Hi. Lou Turner, I'm Claire's account manager and really privileged to work with Carly at LinkedIn. So I guess for me, two things. Firstly, a statement and then a question. The first statement is thank you for choosing to open up and place your trust in us. I think that's an absolutely critical part of this journey. I guess the question for me is kind of looking back over that period, there's some great learnings that you just had on the screen, but if there was one thing with the benefit of hindsight you would have done differently if you were taking this journey again, what would that be?
Only one, Lou.
Only one.
I think getting the balance right between the vision and the level of detail, right? I think that I approached it as a change project that I was leading and designing and delivering, and I was having to do that through the markets and through the market HRDs. I don't think I was detailed enough in some of that, which is a bit of, I made some assumptions, and there's also a bit of personal style stuff in there, right? So if I was to really go back and do it again, I would make sure I had as much detail as I had as much vision. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? See one at the back. I think there's mics up here, sorry. It's a long walk.
Hi there, Mark Duffy. I'm a talent acquisition partner for Hertz. We've adopted a similar shared services model as well, and I just wanted to know how your recruitment team is actually set up. Is it everybody centralised in one location in a country, or is it on an international basis in country itself?
Yeah, so we have 5 geographical clusters: North America, Latin America, Europe, Asia Pacific, and Africa. And we have a mix of people in markets and some people in hubs. So in North America, the recruiters, I have 1 in Canada and 5 sit in the office. In Europe, we have some people based in the London office, and then we have some in markets. So it's really kind of, it depends on the kind of market structure.
Okay, great. And in terms of the direct sourcing method now that you've gone down, do you think you've saved money in terms of, direct sourcing as opposed to going out to agencies now, especially, using these tools with LinkedIn?
Yes, absolutely. We haven't quantified all of that yet, but because we made such in some of our markets, especially the emerging markets, because we made such a step change away from, listen, this is how we're going to be working, there's absolutely going to be business benefit there. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. Yep.
Hello. It's quite daunting, isn't it, actually?
It is.
I was going to ask, with the assessment centres, how do you think the new recruitment model that you adopted, how do you think that influenced that sort of higher conversion rate in the assessment centres?
So I think there was a few things, and it's still early days yet, so very much kind of working it through. So some of the things that drove that was we were assessing ahead of need, right? So I think there's a big difference in the line manager mindset from, oh my gosh, I have a vacancy, let's fill it, to we're slightly ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
But then also we were putting much more rigour into, because the team was more focused on assessing profiles rather than hunting, then I think the quality of assessment started to go up.
Okay.
It's kind of the two things I would say.
The people that made it into the assessment centres were better.
Yes,
fit.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
Thank
you for the question.
Hi, how have you managed the adoption of your new tools with your recruiters on the ground, the operational guys?
Yep, so I think it's a good question. There's a mix of how much the tools were new and how much of it is a new application. So in some of our other markets, they were completely new. And then I would say in the Europe market, it was probably more about redesigning and reshaping what we had, and it's been tough, right? So you have, if somebody had a recruiter license and then they don't, and you're asking them to use a pipeline model, it's been difficult because they've been trying to perform as well as learn the new stuff, right? So I would say the adoption, we're getting there. We have set up on LinkedIn all of the training suites. So Craig Ringland, he worked with us on pulling together a suite that's really relevant for teaching the teams, self-learning. So we're still on a journey there too, right? So there's a bit of, I used to have a recruiter seat, I don't have it now, kind of how do you want me to work this? What we are seeing though is once we show and once we demonstrate, actually you now have 900 profiles that you just need to go in and review against rather than going hunting. It's starting to make a difference in how people are thinking. And I'll just share with you one of my really fantastic recruiters in Latin America called me up and said, we have a problem. These safe searches, they're no good. It's much better when I search myself. I said to him, I don't understand. And he's like, the safe searches, the whole pipeline searches are not any good. When I do it myself, it's better. And I was like, Mariano, it's you that's doing it, and it's you that's saving it. So there was a little bit of people trying to understand what they did and how it sat in the new model. Does that?
And if I could add
It does,
to
yeah.
that.
Thanks very much.
Just want to add to that one thing I have found is really important is we did a number of kick-off calls with the entire recruitment function. And for us, it was super important to have Claire leading those calls so that she could, again, repeating herself, the reasons behind the change, what the objectives were for Diageo, why they were doing it, and what the goals were, so that everybody really had that perspective and that framework. And we also then gave them an indication of how we were going to upskill them with the tools and the program that we were about to take them on. And I think initially, that is a really important part of change, is getting, for us anyway, the leaders of the change involved in that process, because it just adds a lot more colour to it.
Thanks very much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for the question. Yep.
Yeah, that's another one.
And I'd be really interested, I'm on now.
Yeah.
I'd be really interested to understand how you've changed that with the new model, whether you had to get extra headcount, whether the volume was there to justify that, or whether you're still fighting that battle.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So we didn't actually, so it was a cost neutral was the whole kind of mandate, right? So we actually moved some BPs into our organisation, so we're really fortunate to have some phenomenal business partners that have come into talent engagement. So we actually, across end-to-end HR, we didn't go up in headcount, we just redeployed some of it. And yes, continue to have that ongoing conversation, right? Because you build a model, and the forecast is 1,000, and then the reality is 2,000, and everyone wants you to jam it into what you have, right? So we're still going through all of that with getting ahead of the forecast and to make sure we're right-sized.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
You mentioned about having to have two different approaches of recruiting. One is always on and pipeline model. So do you have a specific different kind of KPIs to measure these two different teams?
Gosh, that's a great question. No. Yeah, I mean, we do look at kind of performance against different types of roles. In terms of time to fill and things like that. But we, in full disclosure, we've been on a journey with our measuring and KPIs as well, right? So time to hire is the one we'd always been measuring, but we had one time to hire metric for all roles. And part of by getting the data together and really understanding how things have been and what's our reality enables us to have a conversation about how things should be. So what should be the metrics against the different roles? So should we have a different KPI for sales entry level? Absolutely. Should we have a different KPI for our Vice President of Global Tax, blah, blah, blah? Yes, we should. And that's still part of the journey we're on. But great question.
Oh, thanks.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
No?
Thank you very much for joining us
yes,
today.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Well done.